Ever since the Twilight Saga, I have been waiting and hoping for some movie to bring the vampire genre back to its glory days. I was really excited when I saw the trailer for this new gothic romance vampire flick called The Invitation, but unfortunately it looks like my wait is not over yet. What's up everybody and welcome to my review of the new film, The Invitation. It doesn't seem like a whole lot of people know this film exists. I remember seeing the trailer at least 2 or 3 times over the past couple of months. I've also seen some online marketing for it, but I've heard no buzz, I've heard no discussions regarding this film, and in my gigantic theater on opening night, I shared the screen with about 4 people. So if you watch the trailer, it shows this very young girl that is going off into this foreign land to spend time with these people that she is not very comfortable around, and eventually it's revealed that they are all a part of some kind of a vampire coven or some kind of a vampire deal is going on. There's blood, there's fangs. I can put 2 and 2 together. Fucking vampires are involved somehow. And that was honestly the one thing, the main thing that drove me to this movie because, as I said in the intro, I'm a vampire fanatic. Some of my favorite films of all time are vampire films, and I have been waiting for what seems like forever at this point for vampires to actually come back to horror. And it just feels like it's never gonna fucking happen. Anyway, I checked this thing out opening night. I didn't have a whole lot of expectations for it, but I did have hopes for it. I was in this movie's corner. And unfortunately, though it is not the worst film that I have seen all year, it is absolutely the most boring film that I've seen in 2022. Starting off with the positives, the lead actress Natalie Emmanuel, you'll recognize her from Game of Thrones as well as some of the later Fast and Furious movies. She is the best part about this. She's so charming, she's so likable, she's a character and an actress that you just want to root for throughout this movie, especially when the situation gets more and more dire, and she was the only thing that made this thing tolerable throughout the first hour plus of this film whenever it was at its slowest. I think that she is an actress that's going to have a very nice career ahead of her. I really want to see her do more. Certainly want to see her do better things than this. She's the shining star among the dreck that is The Invitation. And I do think that the castle slash mansion that we spend most of the movie with does have a good amount of atmosphere, especially when they're in the lower parts of the mansion, when they're in like the catacombs and the tunnels and the crypts and all that stuff. I think that the setting of the movie was really good. And I think the production value on the setting was good. I think that it really added to that gothic nature that they're going for with this. And it's a shame that the movie that fills this mansion was not more entertaining because they got that side of it right. This is perfect for a vampire film. As far as the negatives, this movie took way too fucking long to get to the point. Way too long. I mean, this thing shows its hand very early on. It shows its hand in the marketing, for God's sakes. You know what you're there for, and it just slowly crawls and crawls towards the premise that we all walked into the fucking theater to see. The first hour plus of this movie is spent showing you your main character, showing that she's kind of alone and she longs for family. Somebody reaches out to her saying, hey, we're your long lost relatives, and it's a bunch of rich, really creepy white people. And so the first act of the film is very much kind of like a gothic take on Get Out, to where you have this person of color surrounded by a bunch of creepy rich white folks, and it just shows how creepy rich white folks can be. And it just hammers that home over and over with the way that they look at her, with the way that they converse with her, with the way that their customs are regarding this very high society bullshit that's around this castle. And so it feels familiar, but not nearly as interesting as the film that it's clearly taken inspiration from. Then you start to get into a bit more of the gothic romance between the main character and like the lead patriarch of this castle. And while he did decent with his acting, I just felt like it was so obvious that this guy was nefarious and had other motives going on. So it kind of took me out of it a little bit, but it spends another half an hour, 45 minutes growing their romance and showing their trials and tribulations as they get to know each other and as he's trying to allure her in and get her trust. And over and over and over again, they keep trying to put these little scare scenes in there to remind you, hey, by the way, this is a horror film at some point. And so you'll get a little jump scare, or you'll get a little noise in the closet, or you'll get little vampiric claw shadows and shit. And then the very next scene, they act like that never even happened. Like the scary shit's not even existent. It almost felt like they were reshoots and just stuck in there because the first 2 acts, somebody in the test screening went, we're supposed to be scared, right? And all throughout the first two acts too, you get that frustration with the script writing to where the main character should be out of there. And I say this all the time, this is a pet peeve that I have that some people are much more forgiving on than me, so maybe this is just a me thing. But when you have situation after situation after situation that is put in front of this girl's eyes in a setting that she is not familiar with or comfortable in whatsoever, surrounded by a bunch of people she doesn't fucking know, and at no point does she decide to hightail it. At no point does she decide, yeah, this chick who just sucked the blood off of my finger in a pool house, that's a bit too much. And then when it finally gets to the reveal, and it finally gets to the third act, and it's like, hey, vampires, bitches.
To Evie, my new bride.
When it gets to that point, the rest of the film is the most cliched, age-old vampire shit that I have seen in a very long time. There is nothing that they do that is unique or creative or a modern spin on something that we've seen before. It's essentially turning into like Dracula and his three brides by the third act, and they don't do anything with it. Anything with the vampire rules, anything with the vampire mythos or the lore or the action or the horror or anything that we have not seen a dozen times done way better, way more interesting decades ago. And so for an hour plus, I'm sitting there and I'm gritting my teeth to the point where the guy next to me, 3 seats down, no lie, started snoring about 45 minutes into this film. And I stuck with it, I toughed it out, I manned up, and I waited for the movie to finally give me what I came for. And when it finally came, I was like, what is this? You made me wait for this. So yeah, the movie really failed to build any sort of tension or intrigue throughout the first 2 acts because the vampire stuff, the horror elements of this, honestly just felt like a distraction from the romance movie that they were clearly more interested in making. When you finally get to the third act and everything comes to a head and shit hits the fan, it's some of the more uninspired, just generic and lazy vampire storytelling that I've seen. The effects on the vampires weren't really all that impressive either. The gore is minimal because unfortunately, this is PG-13, which was the one thing I was worried about walking into this, is why the fuck are we making PG-13 vampire movies in 2022? But nonetheless, it's a movie that, to me, was not worth any bit of my time. So overall, guys, there wasn't a whole lot to say about this film other than the fact that I found it unbearably boring, and the payoff that I was waiting for was nothing but a disappointment. So if you're a vampire fan, do not put any eggs into the basket of this film, bringing back that beloved subgenre. If you're somebody that loves gothic romance, that's about the only person I would say might be the core audience this film is looking for. Everybody else, just save your money and go buy The Lost Boys on 4K or something. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed this review, please click over here to check out the rest of my 2022 new release reviews. I'm also going to put my review of The Lost Boys, my favorite vampire flick, up here. If you're a fan of the subgenre, like and share this video and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any reviews in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.